up. And after that,
Yeah, why would you know it by heart? Come on, Gotti. Hey, bro. We know you practice in secret. Again, can you hand me the...
You guys ever see those memes about the what is it, the Forex traders? And they come in and it's like, they're like, it's like the Drewski images.
Yeah.
That was the funniest ever.
I've been saying that everywhere against the war and all day, or like every day to motivate people. Yeah.
Really? Shit is so funny. Are you ready to go?
yeah.
Awesome. Well, today we are going to be presenting this is the NSBE Financial Literacy Workshop. This is kind of a workshop that I put together based on a lot of things that I've been reading over the course of winter break, as well as the content that I've learned in just like econ and kind of applying it to your engineering degree. You all are studying engineering, and it's just a great opportunity to kind of, like use that skill to then be financially literate and make more money over the course of your career. This is like the first slide that I have, just like not being that guy, but I'm not a financial advisor. If you need financial help, like consult a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice, don't sue me. And then these are the three major books that I read over the course of the past 3 years, and these were kind of books that I handpicked that I felt were going to give the best information about financial literacy. We have Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, Just Keep Buying by Nick Maggiulli, and The Millionaire Next Door, which The Millionaire Next Door was actually a PhD project where they interviewed 500 millionaires and also sent out a survey to 11,000 millionaires around 1996. And in this project, they kind of found what the textbook millionaire looked like, how they acted, and what their tendencies were throughout their lifetime. And it's a really good book. I know my aunt specifically introduced me to this book, and I read it, and it's just a really good book. And then I would say that is one of the first books that you would read, and then Psychology of Money kind of talks a little bit about really how people's interactions and how people think are important to the transactions within the economy. At a high level, an economy is just me and Isaiah giving transactions back and forth, or me and another person giving transactions. And this happens with a big country like the United States, and then you end up getting an economy with a GDP, and that's effectively just the sum of all the sales in the economy. And there's not just the transactions that go into that, but actually the psychology of how we all think about interactions in these transactions and how we're doing really matters a lot. Then Just Keep Buying gives you very solid economic-based ways to kind of make more money and invest and save. It's split into two different parts, and I kind of go into that further in this presentation. And so I think the first thing that you should think about when you consider learning finance is, what do you want in life? What are you looking to get? What are some things that you guys want? There's a question for you guys. You want LeBron dollar? He wants a LeBron dollar? Okay. What else do you guys want?
I mean, I would like all of those things on the screen, to be honest.
Oh, so you want everything.
I want everything.
LeBron dollar. Obviously, we got Scrooge McDuck.
Right.
We got, or Scrooge Duck, or
Right.
a Lamborghini, a family, a nice modern house. So yeah, like there are a lot of things that you want, and I think that's the real. If you're going to start on this like financial journey, having a why and kind of a baseline as to what you're trying to attain is really helpful, because with the skills that you have, you're going to make a lot of money. You're going to be in situations where you're negotiating in the thousands, and really being able to kind of say, why am I asking for extra money, or why am I going to start a business, or why am I going to do all these things, really will allow you to have a motivation towards what you're trying to achieve. And so this is another like mental exercise that I had, and I really want to emphasize the idea of what money represents to you, and also things that you may not consider when you think of money. So in the previous slide, we talked about a lot of material things. Specifically, the family wasn't as material. It was something that you will earn, and it's a personal relationship, and you build. But money will play a role in a lot of the things in your life. And so let's assume that you have $100,000 in your bank account right now. How does that make you feel? How does that make you see the world? How does that affect your spending? How does that affect a lot of things? And why does it affect those things? Does anybody have an answer to why they think having an extra $100,000 would change if they want canes tonight? Yeah.
I guess it feels like it's like getting like a bucket, right? And having to fill, every time you spend money, it's like dipping your cup in the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like basically you just fill up my bucket like once again.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel like, for a lot of time, like, it's a difference between having $10 in your account versus having, again, 100,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more likely maybe, be a little bit more balling, maybe I might buy extra toast without trading out the coleslaw, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
exactly. You can buy extra toast without trading out the coleslaw. I love that. That's so funny. So yeah, that's kind of the idea of having extra money. And one thing that you talked about, but you didn't explicitly say, is that you had like an option. You had like a choice. You could choose to add extra coleslaw. That's a really big deal. And that's one thing that I learned in Psychology of Money. That's one thing. All of these have like little bookmarks that are specifically from the book that I read them from. And having a choice is really powerful. Having the option to be able to work if you want. Having the option to, be able to buy extra coleslaw. Having the option to, start a project or a nonprofit or something that you care about and not have to go work for the man that you actually despise and you don't really 100% follow. Having the option to do these things is one of the many things that having more money will get you. Having an option is, in finance, like options are just an opportunity, they're a choice to buy something at a certain time. And having more money in the bank will allow you to kind of have that option. And that's something that you should consider when you're looking and you're on this pursuit of wealth. And so before we start to talk about like numbers and like goals and like start to really quantify things, I want to kind of bring out this, which is the life cycle hypothesis theory. Not to bore you, this will be a quick slide. But effectively, what this is your life. Over the course of your life, you will consume at around this line, and before you really start to make money from your full-time big boy engineering job, you'll be in debt, and you'll spend a lot more money than you receive. This will be on rent, this will be on food, this will be on your student loans. If you're in debt right now, this slide, and even if you're not in debt right now, this slide is here to kind of tell you that you're in the correct spot. You're studying at like a super top-notch engineering university, you have education, you're investing in yourself, and that means that you are right where you're supposed to be on this life cycle. So as we get into different hypothetical scenarios, consider that you're on the start of this super long journey, and we'll talk about time and time value and compound interest, things like that later, but the big thing is that you're on the start of this tremendous journey that you are already ahead of the curve on. And this is just something to consider and look at as you kind of put yourself in your own race. And so this is kind of a slide that I wanted to put in because this is another way you can quantify your goals. When you think about how much money you spend every year, one thing that's super interesting to consider is how much you would need to save to do that same amount of spending in retirement. The 25 times rule allows you to kind of put an exact estimate on that. And here are a few examples. So if you wanted to make $40,000 a year, then you'd have to save $1 million in order to get to $40,000 a year of savings. This is assuming you take out 4% of your money, and this is usually over like a 30-year period. And then also over here, we have annual spending, where you have around like $150,000 that you want to spend. And this is a more comfortable living scenario, right? But then that's the thing is that now you have to save more at the 25 times mark, you're saving up to 3.7 million. And that's kind of the end goal. You get a certain amount of money, and then after a certain amount of time, this is also kind of talking on the hypothesis slide, or the life cycle hypothesis. You'll ultimately have this money and then dis-save, and that's how you kind of will go into retirement. And the earlier your saving is, usually the more you'll have to make. We go into that a little bit further. Do you guys have any questions on any of this so far?
Where does the 25 come from?
So the 25 times rule. This is a rule that's cited in a lot of different literature, and specifically it came from this, I don't know specifically where it came from, but I remember reading it for the first time in this, it was the J.L. Collins, or the N.J., I think it was J.L. Collins. He wrote this stock series, and he talked about pretty much, there were a bunch of economic studies that wanted to find out how long money would last in the market, like the stock market, and index funds, which we will talk about later. But they wanted to find out how long money would last. And they have been playing around with like around the 4 to 6 to 2% withdrawal rate in order to find out how long money would last for 30 years. And so this 25x is just like 25x is, or 4%, the reciprocal of 4% is 25. And so this 25x comes from taking out 4% of your money at a time over a 30-year span. So yeah, and that's what literature says. I would say sometimes 6% is higher. Also, if you have like a low valuation, so you're in a recession, then you may see a smaller amount that you would want to take out or a bigger amount that you'd want to put in.
So, sorry. Is
Yeah.
annual spending supposed to be your income, or what is that supposed to be?
So annual spending is, it's like income, except for the fact that income is going to be taxed at a different rate than annual spending. Mm-hmm. So spending just means how much you're like consuming. It's not going to be income, where income is more along the lines of like how much you work for a certain pre-tax income and then you have a certain post-tax income. So I would consider spending different from income because income is going to be taxed. Spending, you're assuming, is not going to be taxed because you're going to take it out at like a long-term capital gains, which is like a different tax rate. It's a different rate. So I don't know if that helped.
So like spending is how much you're putting into savings each year, ideally.
No. So spending will just be when you have the money in the investment account. Mm-hmm. So you've saved up over the course of your career, you save up $1 million. Mm-hmm. Once you have $1 million, you can now take out $40,000 at a time.
Oh, okay.
And so that's going to be like the amount that you can spend from your retirement fund.
So you're saying like the retirement will last about 25 years if you take out X amount of money from the total goal?
It will take 30 years. So it'll take about 30 years if you take out 4% every year.
Okay.
On average.
Sure.
And this is, Any other questions? Okay, awesome. So and then one other thing to keep in mind is that economic research has just shown that happiness increases at a positive correlation with income. There isn't really a deterministic amount that it's gone up to and stopped at. Some say 50,000, 75,000 is usually one thing that you'll hear. And then 500,000 is something that I even saw when I was doing research for this. So something else to keep in mind. So then the question is now, how much do you want to make a year? How much do you want to spend a year? And also I wanted to ask, how do you guys make money? How do you chase a bag? Like, how are we bag chasing in here? What do you guys do? Are any of you guys on welcome committee? No? You are?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that.
There's that.
Okay. Okay. How else do you make money?
I'm a chess coach.
What'd you say?
I'm a chess coach.
You're a chess coach? Oh damn. What's your ELO? Do you know?
15.
15. Okay. Yeah. That's high. Okay. I didn't even know that. That's cool. He's just like that complex. Yeah.
I also work as a tour guide for Mexico.
Oh, a tour guide for Mexico. Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Sweet.
I don't chase a bag.
Oh, you not yet at least. Not yet at least. Not yet. How do you make money? How have you made money when you worked with really cool coworkers?
Yeah, I did work with someone pretty cool. Yeah, so internships, campus jobs sometimes. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So like there are a bunch of ways you can make money, and then one thing to consider, and you don't have to say this, but how much you want to make a year. Having a target goal for how much you want to make a year will give your spending and your savings a very, very quantifiable goal. And so this is how you make money.
Oh my god. Hey,
No, I'm joking. You don't make money like this. You don't make money from gambling. But I'm actually surprised that nobody said that, because that was one thing my roommate said. He's like, "Oh, I gamble." I'm like, "Bro, what do you mean you gamble? I mean, that's not how you're supposed to do it." So from just keep buying, the big way to make money is to save and invest. Those are kind of the two main sides of the coin when it comes to like making money and having long-term savings. And so, so what is savings? So more specifically, savings, actually let me move this over here. More specifically, savings is gonna be just how much you make minus how much you spend. And this is going to matter because this is kind of going to be how you create like a fundamental like piece for when you're actually trying to invest. And so just based on this equation, how are we gonna increase savings?
Increase income or decrease expenses.
See, he sees the vision. So that's the thing. So now, okay, so we're bag chasing, right? And now we have two main questions. Are we going to decrease our expenses, or are we going to increase our income? Do you guys have any opinions on which one you think we should do?
I guess it depends, you know.
It depends. It really depends. I guess increase your income. Maybe you want.
You said increase income. You said depends.
I don't. This is actually that's a very interesting question, because both are kind of hard to do. I feel like decreasing your expenses is kind of a baseline thing that can't really change unless you like make another big financial like jump in your life. But then increasing your income is also hard as well, because I mean getting a job now is kind of hard. So
I think increasing your income takes time, and how I was thinking of it, like when you decrease your expenses, sometimes depending where you're at in life, it can be a lot of it can kind of be more of a economy. Sometimes that means decreasing my expenses. That means I might start eating less, right?
Yeah.
That means I might have to maybe have less rent. So maybe I might have to find a place that's cheaper rent, but that means less in quality. But it also means that I put in time in moving out and changing how my day is. So I feel like increasing income. Obviously, there's a lot. I feel like one, there's a lot of avenues, and two, I feel like definitely maybe one of the most streamlined avenues is that I think I won't say showing off, but working to taking time to work up the ladder. But obviously, that's also sometimes it takes a lot of time. It's not something you're gonna have in the span of a year.
Yeah. You have anything? Yeah. Well, I think those are great points, because this is something, and this is a topic that's talked about in the book Just Keep Buying by Nick Maggiulli. And there's actually like a lot of research that's put into this question, because this is like a really fundamental problem. And so this is a chart that I wanted to show you guys, and you can take like maybe a minute to try and like figure out what it is, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on like what is going on here. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. I'm gonna grab some water. Any ideas? Yeah.
So it seems like statistically, like if you're making a lot less, it's probably likely that you're going to be spending more, at least on the things that you do need. So it's probably going to be harder to decrease what you need. I mean, especially at that point. So
And what are you spending more of?
Spending more on like spending more on necessities and things like that. So it'd probably be, if possible, better to try to increase your income.
And do you think this is more in the like absolute sense? Like, are people who are, who are lower earners spending more money than people who are higher earners, or are they spending more money, more of their like income percentage?
Like income percentage.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
I think it's just interesting how no matter like a lot of it's still pretty like the same. Also, in the graph on even if like you're in a higher like percentage, you're still spending a lot of food. I think it's really interesting how everyone is commonly spending a lot less on transportation than anything else.
Yeah. And so, you guys hit it pretty much on the mark. What this represents is these are the lowest 20% of earners and what percentage of their income they're spending monthly, or I think it's actually annually, on their necessities. Like you look at these shaded regions, this is food, healthcare, housing, transportation. Isaiah kind of talked about how you can kind of eat less, but like even then, that's not like a viable solution. You see like housing, transportation, and healthcare. Those are things that are kind of fixed. You know, you're not going to be in a scenario where you can say, oh, I'm just going to like cut rent $20 and then take that money and go put it somewhere else. In developmental economics, this is called this is similar to a poverty trap. It's where pretty much like when in capitalism, you are at the very bottom, and so the system is exploiting you, and you have to use credit cards, you have to use payday loans, you end up being subject to loan sharks, and this is a very difficult and rapid problem in a capitalist society, a free market society. And then we look at this, so this is the bottom 20%, and even when we look at the next 20%, so this is the bottom 20 to 40%, we still see these people that are living paycheck to paycheck. And it's hard to kind of tell these people, just spend less. Just don't buy the coffee. Just don't do whatever you're trying to do. Because there are things that, as long as you don't have too much lifestyle creep or something like that, you're going to spend money on. And that's kind of the takeaway that I want you to have from at least this example, is that when we start to see income increase, all of a sudden, you have savings. And so if you were to go to someone back here and say, invest 20% of your income in the stock market, and that's how you get rich, right? That's gonna be a very interesting conversation. You know, it's gonna be a very interesting conversation because that's not really the problem. They don't have savings to invest. They don't have savings to use to further themselves. And so this is kind of what we see, is that decreasing expenses is really not a viable solution to gaining a lot of wealth. I put a few of the earnings reports here. Getting this earnings data was a hassle. I was like going through like IRS tax return data and then a bunch of like other data. So like, yeah, so this is kind of, and a lot of like Bureau of Labor Statistics information. So these are rough estimates, but the main takeaway from this example is that if you can earn more than the bottom 40% of the society, then you will have an opportunity to invest, have an opportunity to take advantage of these advanced financial markets that we'll kind of go into later. Not too much, but enough. And you'll kind of realize that you now have this opportunity that 40% of the population doesn't even have. And you really have a lot of privilege and a lot of responsibility with the opportunity that you have. And so, something to consider. Are there any questions? Yeah.
What's the 60th percentile?
60th percentile?
That would be. Oh wait, no, wait.
It's
no.
around like 65,000.
Right. I was doing math wrong. I thought that 60th percentile would be greater than 40%.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. Yeah. No, and especially one thing that I saw too that was interesting was like between the gaps between the percentiles are crazy.
Sure.
Like you look at the 0.001%, and they're making 18 million a year.
Yeah. The jump happens at like I'm guessing around the 60th birth.
And yeah, there's the 99.999, and they're making like triple-digit millions a year.
Yeah.
And that's like still not even the Zuckerbergs or Bezos or Elon Musk. Like the wealth inequality is so high, and then you look at the people at the very bottom, and the difference is just like it's like thousands. It's like it's nuts. It's really crazy. Wealth inequality is just such a big issue. But yeah. So decreasing expenses isn't gonna work. So increasing income. Hey, money spread. No. So this is not what I'm here to talk to you guys about, because you guys are all engineering students who are investing in yourself, and over the course of your career, your income's going to increase. The biggest thing that I would say is negotiating is a really big deal, especially with especially with people of color in corporate America, because a lot of people aren't taught it. and you don't understand that you should require to have more because other people are requiring to have more, and even just having the negotiation skills will get you pretty far. I know one website that I use a lot just to check and see wage data is Levels FYI. They have a super nice UI, especially if you work in tech, compy, if you're in SWE, compy, a hardware development engineer, if you're going into project management, this is a great website. But kind of spend a lot of time meeting a lot of people because that gives you more opportunities. I know one thing that I like to do is like, if you post on LinkedIn a lot, like it's a great way for people to see you and, you know, just even get that awareness. Like I think that's such a huge thing. So do that and connect with a bunch of people from Illinois. But this is not really why we're here, because over the course of your career, you'll be able to do this. You will do this as long as you continue to, you know, advance and work hard. I think that's the biggest thing, especially in the positions that you guys are in. And so now I want you guys to kind of look at, there's this example, but I want you guys to check out the investment calculator. An investment calculator is going to be like something where you just enter in the information and you're able to see how much money grows. So hold on, I can show you the investment calculator real quick. Yeah. So if you guys look up on Google, investment calculator, it looks like this. This is what it looks like. Wow. So look up on Google the investment calculator if you can. And this allows you to, I know it's kind of hard. Actually, is it okay if I pull up this investment calculator here? Or no? If not, or you can. Here you go.
Yeah, no, you definitely can. It's just if the keyboard is working. That's the main part.
That's okay.
So let's see if it connects then.
Maybe I could just do it on whiteboard.
Yeah.
This works too.
Want to move the camera in then?
I think it'll be alright.
Yeah. Then because all you usually need the numbers, right?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like putting the number. Yeah.
No, you can search on my computer.
Oh, yes, sweet.
That's fine. You should have to use the keypad on the online keypad. That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
So
Inconvenient that my keyboard did it. Alright, and then here it is.
Here you go. So this is a pretty cool program that you can use, and it just kind of gives you a sense of like how much money can increase over time. And one thing too that's interesting is that you'll be able to see like a little like just like a basic information about like how much things grow and effectively like how important compounding is. And so if we were to just add $0 and let's say that you make, let's say you have an internship at like Research Park and you're getting $30 an hour, right? So if you have an internship at Research Park and you're working at, you're working at like State Farm, for example, for $30 an hour. And we can kind of do this and then also do it for like a full-time job at like $100,000 or like, around like that amount. So for $30 an hour, you're making around $4,800 a month. And so let's say you invest 20% of that. So that ends up being $960, I think.
Oh, the numbers work on the keyboard.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And one other thing too is that as you work on here, so this is if you were to work at Research Park for 10 years and make $30 an hour, you would get about $60,000 interest. And so I kind of, here we go, where is it? Because this, okay, yeah. So you can see the interest right here in the green. And you can also see like, this is just 10 years, but how much is it going to increase if we double the timeline? What do you guys think?
Double? Probably 4 times.
You think 4 times? Okay. What do you guys think? You think 4?
4 times, yeah.
4, we can try. So look at that. Yeah. You see almost, about like a 4 times increase. And so that puts you at around, if you're 20 now, about like 40. So there you go. So you're talking about that amount at 40, at $30 an hour for 20 years. That's assuming you don't have any progress in your career and you kind of just stay at Research Park and work as an intern. But let's assume you're like a full-time employee, right? And you're making $100,000, and which ends up being about like $8,000 a month. And you decide you're going to put 25% of your income in. So you put in this much, 25. Yeah, there you go. So now let's go back to 5 years. And so we have 546 right now. So actually, let me write these down. So we have 546. We have an intern. So we have intern. So so an intern will make like $546,000 over the course of 20 years if they invest. I think it was $960 a month, $960. So now let's look and see how much a full-time employee makes or invests in 5 years at 8%. This is $145,000. This is as much money as the intern is making in 10. And then we can kind of increase the time, but what do you guys think is the most important value in this? You guys have any guesses? I guess we can also do 20 right here, actually, before I ask you. Yeah, there's $1 million. That's your 40K a year right there.
I mean, if you try to increase your additional contribution each year, I think that's probably the most important. Of course, with time, it's going to exponentially grow. Yeah. But if you can increase the amount of additional contribution you can make each year, you're going to
grow
catalyze
faster.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And so so let's say we, in that same amount of time, this person just put in $2,000, but let's say they put half in, right? And they're pretty well off, and they decide they're going to put half in. Now they're at $2 million, 2.275.
Right.
And you kind of realize, okay, from the beginning, we said, okay, we have a goal of, let's say, 150,000, which was like about 3.7 million. So now let's say we add another 5 years to this. We're trying to get to 3.7 million. That would give us $150,000 a year. There you go. I guess we'd go like maybe 51.5. There you go. That's your $150,000 a year for the next 30 years. And that puts you at around 45 and a half. So now the goal really is okay, we understand our goals. We understand how important this idea of time and then how much we're putting in matters. And now it's just a race to the end. That's at least how I think of it. It's it's exciting. Yeah.
Where is the additional contribution going? Is this just going generally into Roth IRA? Where is it going?
This is going into, so we have an 8% return rate, and I'm using 8% because that's usually what the S&P returns. So think of SPY, VOO, VTSAX, VTI. I have these also on another slide, but an index fund. Yeah. An index fund that tracks the market and will return on average usually 10%, but I'm using 8 right now just to kind of assume that there's going to be a recession and there's going to be market trends and business cycles and things like that.
And this is investing in the stock market, right?
Yeah, like a stock market. Also, you could do a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, 401ks, a bunch of different things. Okay. And this also assumes that you don't go work for a tech company that 10x's. If you go work for a tech company that 10x's or something, now all of a sudden you're making this in a lot shorter of a time period. But this is something that I remember freshman year sitting on and just really putting in numbers for everything. Because it's just it's interesting to understand how much power this amount of money has. Because this means you now, and kind of going back to the beginning, you have an option. If you don't want to stay at work past 4 p.m., you're not staying at work till past 4 p.m. You know, if you want to go to your daughter's recital or whatever, you know, you get to do that. If you want to take every Friday off, you take every Friday off. You know, that's kind of the idea, and that's something that you have the value to do because of this exercise. And so yeah, but then, and this is kind of, I think that is a crazy like demo thing, because that's nuts. But yeah, this investor one like crazy.
Did it? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's good. It's pretty good. Try it.
Oh yeah, there you go. And so yeah, we see that time in the market is much better than timing the market. That's one of the things that it's just like one of the sayings that is always tossed around in like the personal finance sector. And in this scenario, this chart actually is every single recession graphed on the S&P 500 returns track. And so each of the gray areas are going to be recessions. So like this is, for example, is the Great Depression, when FDR came in and saved the United States with the New Deal. And then we have the 2008 recession right here, where there was a super big housing crisis and mortgage-backed securities ruined the United States for like a span, right? And then you have like, for example, the dot-com bubble right here. There was also another recession in the 80s. But yeah, you see that this trends positively. And one of the cool things that I learned from, I think it was Just Keep Buying, or it was Psychology of Money. I know I have Just Keep Buying here. Is when you start to look at increments in this section, in this chart, you look at 10-year increments, 5-year increments, 1-year increments, and then you extend this to like 30 years, this is what we were investing in for our example, which is 25 and a half years. 100%, I think it was 100%, or it was like 95, it was like a high 90% or almost 100% of the time, over the course of 30 years, you'll see a return, a positive return in this market, which is really interesting. And yeah, and I was looking at it when I was doing this, I'm like, okay, so like this and that. And yeah, you can look and you can see that I think it was almost every 30-year period, you saw a positive return on investment, which is something to consider, considering the fact that you're not 80 years old. You know, if you're 20 years old, you can have 30 years to kind of invest, whereas someone who's, 60 or 90 doesn't have that opportunity. And then I kind of wanted to talk about the millionaire next door. And so this scenario, and this guy I took off the internet, is our average millionaire. And the millionaire next door actually surveyed and interviewed 5,000 people that were all millionaires. And pretty much they brought down like this average, like very average millionaire. And in this scenario, he was around in the mid-50s, he was a man, he was married, he lived in a middle-class community, was very frugal, and worked an engineering job or like an accountant job, had a degree, and saved a lot, like saved aggressively. In Millionaire Next Door, they talk about predominant accumulators of wealth, PAWs, and then under accumulators of wealth, which are UAWs. And they kind of talk about how you should definitely live below your means if you're looking to retire early or try to retire and save a lot of money, because it gives you a lot of opportunity to kind of use that compounding in your best interest. And this is just something that I wanted to show because, yeah, like this is what they had in the book. But, and this is kind of like the TikTok thing where it's like all black. The future millionaires are pictured above. And they're you guys. And so the big thing that I really wanted to say was just like, yeah, like I think the big thing is that, if you really want to get into this stuff and really understand it better, these books are a great opportunity, but really just read a lot. Like if you read it, like even just reading The Millionaire Next Door will improve your financial literacy like crazy. It's a great book to read. Other than that, I would say some books can be a little complicated and convoluted, but definitely, yeah, consider reading even just a little bit online if you like or whatever. I have a bunch of different links embedded in this presentation if anyone wants it after. But yeah, just considering how much you're spending and how much you can afford to save based on what we talked about with the expenses, and then also talking about how There's a very big difference because everyone wants to spend $1 million, but to be a millionaire, you have to have $1 million. And so that's like a really big deal because if you're someone who wants to, like everyone wants to spend $1 million on a worldwide world tour, you know, but to be a millionaire, you have to have it. And that's a really big thing to keep in mind. And then, yeah, really, as the better you get at personal finance, the more you understand it, the more you can improve in your own journey because everyone starts from a different spot. That's one of the reasons that, like, if someone asks, oh, how much should I save? How much should I invest? How much should I be spending? It's like, well, like, where are you? Like, where are you? That's the really big question. And so, really, it's a you versus you journey. So, and feel free, if you have any questions, reach out. And I'm happy that you guys could, you know, hear a little bit about my reading journey. So,
Man.
I think that's about it. But
No, that was
awesome.
bro, that was
Sweet.
no, generally that was like really good. Like 40 minutes went by for me. It didn't feel like 40 minutes.
I appreciate it. I'm so happy.
I was looking at time like damn.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, this presentation is definitely. I tried to put a good amount of effort into it.
No,
So I was
yeah,
like, dude,
definitely
like, I want to make it like entertaining at least, like, because there's like a lot of this stuff where it's just like, bro, like, please end it, bro.
No, would you be down like kind of rerun this event too? Like
I'd be down, yeah.
yeah, like I obviously
love it, like-
unfortunate timing for this one, but I really
No,
do
it's
feel like
fine,
a
yeah.
lot of people like should like it really listen.
It's
to
crazy
this.
because I thought when I read when Just Keep Buying over winter break, when I read that expenses versus income thing, like the whole idea of like, oh, like people who have super high expenses and they're just like in these traps, literal property traps, they it's really hard for them to get out of those scenarios. And it's like, it is a systemic issue, like a real systemic issue in a capitalist society where these are the same people that are, you know, working 3 jobs already and still can't get out of these like loopholes.
How do people get out of those like when they're at, like back to like the bottom 20%? How do people really get out of them? And I'm guessing there might be small cases of people
Yeah.
get out of them, but like
Well, yeah, the really big issue that you see, and this is the really sad part about it, is that people in these scenarios actually have, like, even, this is a scenario where someone who has the wits to really, like, if they had the opportunity to really be able to work hard and get through their process and do something, people who could, for example, become geniuses, like people who could be leading scientists, leading, you know, politicians or something like that. Like people who could be engineers, for example. Even if they are really, really qualified to do what they're trying to do or have the willpower, the personality to kind of succeed in a society like this, they effectively never get an opportunity to do that. And it's a really big issue with the way that people get opportunities within the society. And when you think about people who try and get out of these situations, most of the time they just don't. And they usually fall prey to credit cards or like payday loan sharks. So loan sharks are pretty much like you get a loan now and you use your loan now for certain things, and then but you owe it back in a week or 2 weeks. Like they're not usual like financial loans or like student loans, for example, where right? I don't want to use student loans. Student loans also have like issues.
yeah.
But really, like they're not like regular loans where you take them out and you pay them back over the course of a year. These are loans where it's like, I need $500 right now. I don't have $500 right now. I need it now. Give me $500 by next week. It's like, how do I get $500 by next week? Like this doesn't even make sense. So yeah, it's a sad situation and definitely something that in a society where, you know, inequality is really a big deal, it's a burning question. So yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yeah.
Thinking about, you mentioned 3 books, right?
Mhm.
So how do you kind of navigate through all the different books that are out there and like find the ones that are like particularly important to read? Because I feel like it's so dense. There's so many people who have so many different ideas. So I'm just curious how you do
Yeah. No, I think the books, the thing too, like I'm taking from these 3 books because specifically with Psychology of Money and Millionaire Next Door, I think that they just have a really good beginner feel. Like you don't need to have a lot of previous experience. You don't need to pretty much say, oh, like I need to study up to 300 level econ to even understand what's going on here. These books for me are just kind of books that, one, Just Keep Buying is the most recent finance book that I've read. so all of it's kind of still fresh. But The Millionaire Next Door and The Psychology of Money are two books where I feel like anybody with any background of experience in this field, if they want to, can learn almost every chapter and understand really, oh, like this is why people do this. For example, one of the chapters of Psychology of Money, they talked about the most influential people to exist. People like Bill Gates, for example, who, if they were not to exist, or actually no, it was the most influential total. So there were people, they had terrorists, so like Hitler, for example, and they also had like Bill Gates, and talked about how the world pivots when these people exist. And so, you know, I just think Psychology of Money was a good book because it really detached the world from just a dollar sign, which I thought was interesting. But these books I just like. They're good.
Appreciate you, Liz.
All right, see you later. Yeah, and so yeah, I also think that yeah, they're good books, so that's why I picked them. But I've definitely read some books that are just like, dude, this is just straight econ theory. And it's like, not that theory econ is bad, but everyone hates it. Like, I even hate it. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, just trying to, you know, go to sleep. But yeah, thanks guys for coming out. I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I'll have to.
No, definitely. I feel like definitely get that read on. I feel like
It was cool.
definitely was. I feel like there's stuff like definitely people I classified don't know.